Unless there's future updates or roles added to Red Dead Online, this could very well be my final guide for the game. By the way, if you want to check out previous guides, my beginner's guide, cash guide, gold guide, etc., along with guides for all the currently existing roles in Red Dead Online, feel free and check out my guide playlist. One of the things that myself and a few others in Red Dead Online have enjoyed doing is going outside the map. We call ourselves explorers because, as you may have noticed when you're riding around the map, especially in New Austin, as you gaze across the San Luis, Mexico is actually there. Well, an incomplete version of Nuevo Paraíso. But did you know that you could actually go over there and check out Mexico yourself and go beyond Mexico to other places such as quote-unquote Canada or even LOWREZ Guarma? Well, thanks to this guide, you'll now be able to venture outside the map and also become an explorer in Red Dead Online. Now, there's been quite a few ways for us to get outside the map in the past. Most of them Rockstar has managed to patch, except for the slide method. And credit to my very good friend Void Amy. She's the one that first introduced me to one of the slide methods I will include below in the description section. The newer one we're going to cover in this guide is in close proximity to the original slide method, but it's a bit faster. Kane and I experimented with it a while back, and it's the one we prefer using. Now, we're not taking credit for either slide methods, but that's the one I'm going to feature in this guide. Both slide methods are located in New Austin along the San Luis River. Now, before you venture off outside the map, there are some things you're obviously going to need. Food, tonics, at least 2 or more horses in your stable, food for your horse along with horse revivers, and 1 revolver and our pistol. The newer, faster slide method that I prefer using is the one that I'm going to show you how to do in this guide. First off, you're going to have to cross the Sea of Coronado with your horse. Once you get across the Sea of Coronado, ride along the shoreline to the destination. Once you reach this destination, then what you're going to want to do is open up your map and set a waypoint across the river to Mexico. Then look for these rocks, which won't be too difficult to find. Stand in front of the rocks in first person facing Mexico. Pull out one of your guns. Doesn't matter if it's a pistol or a revolver. Then what you're going to want to do is aim your pistol or revolver across the river at Mexico. Once again, while in first person, holding down these specific buttons on the screen. Doesn't matter if it's an Xbox controller or PlayStation. It works for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, as well as Xbox Series controllers. Then move backwards with the left analog stick while holding down the other buttons until you stumble on the rocks. And once you stumble on the rocks, you want to quickly take both analog sticks, go left with the left analog stick, and hold right with the right analog stick, and hold down all the buttons until you get across the river to Mexico. If done correctly, and it might take you several attempts to get this right, you'll start sliding across the river. Continue holding the buttons until you've reached the shoreline across the river. Once you're on land, then you can release the buttons. Congratulations, you should be in Mexico by now. If you didn't dismiss your horse, if it's still on the American side of the river, don't worry about that, because not too far from you, just a few feet south, you'll be able to spawn in another horse. Now, if you only have one horse, and by the way, I'd recommend a really good horse, Turkmen, Foxtrotter, Arabian, some of the other ones, along with the Nacogdoches saddle, hooded stirrups. You're going to want to first and foremost dismiss your horse before you attempt the slide method. But if you have more than one horse, then once you get across the river, just run a few feet south to where we are on the video, on the map, and then go in a stable and summon a new horse. And if done correctly, your horse will spawn nearby, also in Mexico. Congratulations, you have your horse. You can now venture around Mexico and beyond. But try not to lose your horse while you're outside the map, because there's really not that many spawn locations once you're beyond the 5 states of Red Dead Online. Now, there's quite a few places for you to explore outside the map. Obviously, you're most likely going to want to start with Nuevo Paraíso aka Mexico. Compared to the Red Dead Redemption 1 version, Nuevo Paraíso, obviously this version is incomplete. However, you can use the Nuevo Paraíso map from Red Dead Redemption 1 to help you get around this version of Nuevo Paraíso and see a few sites that happen to be there, as well as locations that should theoretically have the town, the cemetery, the tunnel for the train line, as well as El Presidio, and of course, the Devil's Eye, which is going to be very important if you wish to explore other regions outside the map besides Mexico. We'll get back to that in a minute. The other regions include what I like to call the Void, which is over on the northwest side of New Austin in West Elizabeth. It's very barren, not much to it. A few animals will spawn over there. Mostly they won't move, but it's kind of cool to see an iguana or some pronghorns just standing there. Sometimes you'll come across a herd of wild horses and occasionally some birds flying above you. And if you continue to go north, you will eventually end up in the snow region of the map, which a lot of us have coined to be quote-unquote Canada. Obviously, it's not really Canada. That's what we call the snowy mountainous region outside the map, which is actually the most treacherous region you can venture into, so be warned. You go up into the snow, you may get lost, you may have to do a lot of backtracking in order to get through and around the snowy mountain regions of quote-unquote Canada, but still it is kind of cool to explore up in Canada, which is basically the snowy region along with everything to the east, which is a little bit nicer once you get past the snow. That's basically north of West Elizabeth as well as Ambarino and New Hanover. And if you manage to make it all the way to the northeast region of the map, you will find a location very few people have dared to venture to, but I have, along with Kane and a few others. While I'm not going to hold your hand when it comes to exploring outside the map, I think that's part of the fun for you to go and explore on your own. If you want to check out some of my adventures outside the map, along with Kane, Void Amy, Fat Chinese Gaming, and a few others, feel free and check out my Outside the Map playlist. Now, going back down to Mexico, it's not the only region I want to talk about. There is the quote-unquote Mexico Ridgeline, or South Mexico, because it's south of Nuevo Paraíso. I'll tell you how to get up there in just a second. But in the northern region is what I like to call a plateau, because it is a plateau of sorts. It resembles the geography of Hennigan's Stead, even though it's on the Mexico side of the river. Now, along the shoreline of Flatiron Lake and the Lanahatchee, I like to call this the Outer Banks. And then finally, LOWREZ Guarma. We'll get to that in a moment. Here's a few tips for you when you're outside the map. Use your map and your waypoints often, especially if you're new to going outside the map. After a while, if you get used to it, if you become a pro explorer, then you may not need it as much unless you happen to be in the snow region and going towards Guarma. Stay clear of the map borders as well as the shoreline. If you get too close to the shoreline or to the borders of the map, the game will try to drag you back into the main map of Red Dead Online. Most bodies of water, especially the rivers like San Luis, Lanahatchee, Flatiron Lake, on the outside of the map portion are what I call death water and can ultimately damage your horse and kill players. So I would avoid most large bodies of water while you're venturing outside the map. As you explore the outer edges of the map, be mindful of the low-res graphics. The low-res graphics are not solid, and you could end up accidentally falling through the low-res graphics to your watery death. Animals outside the map, except for birds that you'll see occasionally flying around, especially in the void, will remain stationary, include predators. However, predators can still cause panic for your horse. I would advise you to pull out your rifle or whatever weapon you wish to use and kill any predators that you encounter, even if they do not attack you, because there's a risk that the horse may get scared enough to throw you off, which could cause damage to you. So if you see a red dot, kill it, even if it's stationary outside the map. You definitely want to use caution while exploring outside the map, especially up in quote-unquote Canada, the snow region of the map. The weather also can be very invisible at times, especially up in the mountains. It can get really bad with cloud coverage, very low visibility. Tread lightly and don't be afraid to backtrack if you feel like you've reached a dead end or gotten lost. Now, the question you probably have is, how do I get over to the void? How do I get up to quote-unquote Canada, the northeastern portion of the map, as well as low-res Guarma? We're going to go back to Mexico near the Devil's Eye to this smooth ridgeline that you see up against the wall. Now, as you get closer to that smooth ridgeline, you'll notice that the game is glitching a little bit. And what you want to do is take your horse and go up on the right side of the ridgeline and try not to panic if your horse stumbles backward. Just go back down and try again. If you do fall off your horse, hopefully you won't die, and hopefully your horse won't die. And if it's injured, that's why you have Horse Reviver, to heal your horse and then replenish its cores along with your character's cores, and try to get up the right side of this smooth ridgeline. And if you do this correctly, you will go from Nuevo Progreso to the upper ridge of Mexico, or South Mexico, or whatever you wish to call it. This is the way that you're going to be able to get to the other parts outside the map. If you want to go explore the American side of the map, which is the void, quote-unquote Canada, or eventually get all the way around the map to the northeastern corner, then you're going to want to go west along the ridge line till you come across this land bridge, and then take the land bridge over from Mexico to the American side of the map. And once again, use waypoints. Do not get too close to the border. If you do, you'll find yourself dragged into the main part of the map once again, having to completely start over. Waypoints are definitely your friend. Obviously, from the void, you can explore the void, go all the way up to Canada and other parts of the map on the American side. Now, if you want to go to low-res Guarma, it's a little bit more tricky because Rockstar does not want people to go to low-res Guarma. And if you try to take a direct shot on the ridge of Mexico towards where, I have Guarma located on this map, you won't make it. If you go too far to the edge of the map, you can either run the risk of falling off the map, or the screen will go black and you will just spawn back in Saint Denis. That's why you can't do a direct beeline from the ridge line of Mexico all the way to where I have Guarma pinpointed. You have to take a bit of a track in order to get to low-res Guarma. While on the Mexico ridge, you're going to want to go north, northeast, hugging the ridge line all the way up to near the shoreline. Don't get too close to the shoreline, but once you see Flatiron Lake and Lanahatchee in the distance, then you're going to want to start heading east or northeast of sorts, parallel to the shoreline from Flatiron Lake to the Lanahatchee, and just be mindful of the vegetation. It'll look a lot like Henniganstead up here, to eventually the same trees you'll find in the swamps of the bayou in Lemoyne. So continue riding parallel to the shoreline, and once you find yourself, I guess, about south of Saint Denis, then you're going to want to start to go a little northeast to the map's edge. Don't go directly east. Go northeast at an angle. Eventually, if you do this correctly, you will find yourself at the edge of the map where you'll have low-res graphics on one side. Once again, do not go over the low-res graphics just yet. You can use the low-res graphics along with the graphics your horse and your character are still standing on as a route. Once you get to this point, you're going to want to head south, riding along the map's edge all the way to the jump point where you'll be jumping or falling into low-res Guarma. Now that you've made it to this corner, you'll notice that you are surrounded now by low-res graphics. And there is a darker green that you'll notice on the screen that is no. Do not fall into this side of the map. Look at the lighter side as we're facing east. If we go by the compass here, below this spot is where they parked low-res Guarma. During the beta period, we actually could explore, Chapter 5 Guarma, but Rockstar removed Chapter 5 Guarma from Red Dead Online's map. Maybe it was like a issue with that version of Guarma when it came to Red Dead Online. But the point is, you can go explore low-res Guarma and make sure your cores are up along with your horse's cores, and then fall with your horse here in the direction I'm pointed. Once you do that, you'll fall, and then you'll basically spawn along with your horse on the beach of low-res Guarma. Congratulations, you should have made it to low-res Guarma. Now you can explore low-res Guarma to your heart's content, but don't go into the water because it's death water, and you will most likely die, and then you'll respawn back in Lemoyne or Saint Denis. And that's how you get outside the map, along with some advice on how to get to other regions of the map without necessarily holding your hand, because as an explorer, you got to take the risk on yourself. That's part of the fun of exploring. Go to these regions that you have yet to venture to, like Nuevo Paraíso, the Void, the northeastern corner of the map, as well as the upper ridgeline of Mexico. And if you dare to dream, all the way up to the Plateau, the Outer Banks, and low-res Guarma. It's fun to explore and ride around in solo or with friends. You can get some amazing screenshots outside the map and have a good time. And it's definitely worth doing, especially if you still enjoy playing Red Dead Online, but you've maxed out all the roles and you've done all the Land of Opportunities and all the other things in Red Dead Online and are just bored and looking for something new to do. Well, why not become an explorer? Is there a chance you'll end up falling off the map, or losing your horse, or dying and respawning back inside the map, or sliding back in the map if you get too close to the border? Yeah, it can happen, but that's part of the risk of being an explorer. The good news is, thanks to this slide method and this guide, you can just start all over again and slide your way back outside of the map into Mexico, respawning your horse, and start over with your exploring outside the map of Red Dead Online. Hopefully this guide has proved useful and helpful for all of you that wish to go outside the map as well. And if you have any other questions, or for any of you else that are explorers, if you have any additional tips or tricks to help aspiring explorers out, feel free and leave all that below in the comments section.